everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our first Instagram live session. And together with me is Dr. Azlina. She is from Bangor University, UK. And today we'll be doing about a sharing session about discovering psychology. And my name is Kimberly. So throughout this entire session, if you have any questions that you are interested about psychology, feel free to pop them down. We will be able to see it and we will answer them one by one. So let me just give you a little bit of introduction about what Dr. Azlina's background is. So Dr. Azlina have completed her bachelor degree in medical bioscience. She then further pursued a master's in clinical and counseling, and then later she pursue her PhD with Nottingham University, and then she was trained as a clinical psychologist. So if any of you are interested to know about clinical psychology or the study of psychology, this is the best time for you to join in. Let's get into the first question, Dr. Azlina. Can you tell us more about the study of psychology?
Okay, before I answer a question, let me just correct the introduction. Okay, so I did my master's in clinical psychology with training in clinical psychology. So I had training in clinical psychology before I did my PhD, not after my PhD. Just thought I should clarify that because I just didn't want to confuse people. Yeah, so regarding your question about the study of psychology as a degree course in Malaysia and UK. In Malaysia, the study of psychology, I think, is rapidly advancing. If you look at 20 years ago, approximately 20 years ago, when I was starting out as a student, it was popular at all. Not many universities offered it. And now look at it, it's one of the most popular courses in Malaysia. It has, and one of the reasons is because it is one of the most versatile courses, allowing graduates to have a solid foundation in a wide variety of employment settings. When you asked about UK, in the UK there are more degree options, but simply because there are more universities and more universities offering psychology compared to Malaysia. So also another advantage is because there are a lot of world-renowned researchers and academics in the UK. So for example, at Bangor, our research is world-leading, one of the world-leading institutions for research. And instead of, like, for example, studying psychology from a textbook that was written by a researcher or an expert, we have the expert actually designing a model and delivering the module, and students get to directly learn from them.
Okay. So that was a perspective from UK, and so we do have an audience over here that asked that how do you make your application stand out? Do you have any advice for our student over here?
That is a very very valid question, and the reason also is because a lot of students they're just focusing so much on grades and grades. But when we're looking at applications, we are looking at more than just grades. We're seeing like hundreds of students, all straight A's, so we need to find something else that will stand out. So anything that you have that would show that you are a well-rounded student. For example, if you have any additional volunteering experiences, that you're doing more things than just studying in your room, that you are attaching yourself, shadowing your lecturers, for example, and you are trying to get getting more experience in a wide variety of settings, that would actually make you stand out in anything that you can do, actually. Because all the skills that you're getting, even if you're working part-time in a library, for example, you're showing some motivation there. There's some durable skills that we can actually gauge from application.
When you mentioned about experience, what kind of experience would you encourage students to go ahead and gain it?
Okay, so it depends on what they want to do. If your passion is that you want to be a clinical psychologist, then it would look good if you have assisted a clinical psychologist before. It would look good if you are volunteering yourself in clinical settings. Things like that would really stand out.
Okay, great. So again, if For our fellow audience, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in and we'll be able to see and answer them one by one. Okay, Dr. Azlina, can you share with us about the career prospects of having a psychology degree, in whether is it in the UK or in Malaysia?
Okay, career prospects in psychology. There are many. So, what do you mean?
So, like, I don't know that for people that went on to study psychology, I have friends that pursue into being a human resource, being a trainer, being a counselor. Yeah, so in terms of that, can you tell us a bit more about the career prospects? Yes.
Okay, so it depends again on what your passion is. As I mentioned, psychology is a very, very versatile degree because it allows you to apply your skills and your knowledge, and you get transferable skills that you can apply in a wide variety of settings. Specifically, if your interest is something more specific, like if you are interested in clinical psychology, for example, then it would help. Then to do both in Malaysia and UK, it would be better to do that. You need postgraduate studies. You need a DClin, and then you can practice in Malaysia and in UK. But in other settings, as you mentioned in HR, a bachelor's degree is sufficient in most cases. Employers are seeing that psychology graduates, not only their knowledge that they gain can be useful in a wide variety of settings, whether it be HR, whether it be in media, whether it be in advertising, because these are the knowledge that you gain, for example, in decision making. When you're planning an advertisement, for example, what would make an advertisement stand out? What would be attractive to general population? Yes, people see it, yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for the explanation. I think there are many students that wonder, like me, or the question that how do you actually become a clinical psychologist?
Okay. Okay, how to become a clinical psychologist? That depends. Are you mean in Malaysia, you mean UK, or?
Can we start with Malaysia and then we go with UK?
So in Malaysia, to become a clinical psychologist, the minimum degree requirement would be a master's degree in clinical psychology that comes with a supervised practicum experience. That means you touch yourself at the hospital, you work with a clinical psychologist, you see patients, you administer interventions, you assess patients, you do all the psychological assessments with the supervision of a trained clinical psychologist. And you do this for a minimum of several hundred hours or 1,000 hours, I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure what the current requirement right now. That's in Malaysia. In the UK, the minimum requirement would be a doctoral degree in psychology, a doctoral degree in clinical psychology, or a DClin with supervision experience as well. It comes with a supervision experience to be sure because they're training you to become a clinical psychologist. To do both, it would be best to, if you want to be a clinical psychologist in both Malaysia and in the UK, it would be best to get your training in the UK. Register yourself there, get chartered membership of chartered clinical psychologist, and then you can come back into Malaysia as well, and you qualify as a clinical psychologist.
I see. Well, so let's say I would want to pursue a postgraduate, but maybe not in clinical psychologist. What kind of master's or PhD that I can pursue?
Okay, it depends again on what your interests are or what you want to do. But there are many different types of master's degree, whether it's business psychology or whether it's to do with neuroimaging, neuropsychology, or just a basic clinical or health degree. Bangor has clinical health master's degree, which is quite popular with students. It just gives you more deeper knowledge, more research knowledge as well, that you can come back and apply your skills.
And you were mentioning about Bangor providing a master's in neuropsychology and clinical as well. So you were mentioning about neuropsychology. What does the study of neuropsychology about?
Okay. So neuropsychology is basically the study of your brain, the relationship between your brain and how it influences your mind, how it influences human behavior, basically. Typically, when you study psychology, we're thinking about human behavior, we're thinking about your mental health, for example, you're thinking about decision making, you think you're talking about just perception and etc.
Mm.
But neuropsychology, it brings in another element and combines psychology with the brain to study how the brain influences your decision making. How does your brain influence your memory? What is the connection between these two?
Oh, that does sounds very fascinating. Well, again, for students that have just joined us, feel free to pop any questions about the study of psychology. We have Dr. Azlina over here to answer your questions at the end of our session. So, let's move on to the next question for Dr. Azlina. Can you share with us about the future trends for psychology?
Okay, there are many. In terms of future trends, there are many directions that psychology is heading, but I will talk about the current few that are quite pertinent to the current situation, and also basically it's been mentioned by the American Psychological Association, the APA. Reports have shown that there will be a current need, there will be a future and a current need for psychologists to play a central role in trying to design interventions, trying to promote sustainable behavior, trying to reduce your carbon footprint, and mitigating the effects of climate change. Psychologists will, and we're seeing it right now, right, with bushfires in Australia, psychologists will be needed to deal with the climate-related effects in emergency disasters. Like in the bushfire in Australia, we need psychologists there to be able to help the people, the victims, to cope with the disaster. We need psychologists there to design interventions, to help people to lead more sustainable lives, to reduce carbon footprint, to aid in policy making, and basically any other disasters that we are seeing right now. One more area that I'm aware of is, for example, in the area of the elderly, with life expectancy is, and this is a trend, not in Malaysia, not only in Malaysia and the UK, but across the world we're seeing life expectancy is increasing, and with developments, with countries developing, is leading to a lower birth rates. People are choosing to have fewer children, and because they are studying longer, they're studying more, they are more focused on their career, and with this increase in life expectancy, decrease in birth rate, we are leading towards an aging population, a very aging nation. So psychologists would be needed then in order to try to promote care for the elderly, basically. One more area I would talk about is maybe like technology. Technology, as you can see, is advancing. So many apps, gadgets, everything is just coming up all over the place. I'm not only talking about phones and gadgets, I'm also talking about those big robots like self-driving cars, which has been coming up. And one of the universities is actually testing out self-driving cars because that's the future, basically. But so psychology expertise will be needed in the design of apps. Some of therapies are now being delivered through apps. What is it called? I'm not sure. I can't remember what it's called. Digital therapies being delivered through apps. So we need psychologists over there to lend their expertise to decide whether what they're doing is it harmful, and provide their expertise in that area. You need to also understand human behavior before you can design these things, and before you can lend your expertise in the design of the robots, because these kind of things, if you don't have the expertise for it, it could lead to more loss of life, or it can affect life in that sense. It will do more harm than good. So we're seeing psychologists actually playing the most important role in this area. And also psychology would be needed. We always need a psychologist in the clinical field, mental health field, as mental health practitioners. There is a demand for clinical psychologists and mental health practitioners in Malaysia, in the UK. We do need more of that. Neuropsychology, as I mentioned as well, but they're all somehow related. We're seeing neuropsychology come out because, for example, therapies can be, you can use neuropsychology to implement therapies. Yeah, but these are just some of the core areas.
Well, so I think if we could summarize, I think the future trend that you have just shared with us comprise of technology, social care, adult, the elderly care. That these three aspects were the points that I took down. And I think personally, I think the technology part was very interesting. Like the study, can you imagine to relate the study of psychology and technology, like the self-driving cars, Teslas, and etc. That was a very quick session to share about some of our point of views from Dr. Azlina, and from here we will take on some of the questions that have been asked, and we have these questions over here that what is the difference between the job scope of graduates from clinical psychology and graduate from ordinary psychology? So I think to simplify them, it's what is the difference between psychologists and clinical psychologists?
Okay, so simply put, all clinical psychologists are psychologists, but not all psychologists are clinical psychologists.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the major difference. So clinical psychology is a more specialized. Ordinary psychologists, they are less specialized. And clinical psychologists is a protected term. They deliver assessments in the practice field. They deliver they run assessments. They deliver therapies. They look at the mental health, mental well-being of the patient, basically, which an ordinary psychologist cannot. They cannot perform assessments. They cannot deliver therapies, and etc. So that is the major difference between a clinical psychologist and other graduates of psychology.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And in terms of academic requirements, were they very different, like to become a psychologist and to become a clinical psychologist?
If you graduates who have graduated with a bachelor's, they can actually consider themselves as a psychologist because they have the psychology knowledge. If they're working in areas where they're using the knowledge, for example, in designing of advertisements, for example, in marketing, they are psychologists because they are giving their knowledge, their psychology knowledge, in designing interventions, in designing the product itself. For example, also in terms of many other areas where psychologists are needed, consultancy. If you're working with children with special needs, you're using this kind of psychological principles in order to do your task. So you're considered a psychologist, but only a clinical psychologist, they are trained in assessing you for mental disorders. They are trained in diagnosing you. They are trained in providing the proper intervention and trying to improve your mental well-being.
What is the difference between psychiatrist and psychologist? I think a lot of students get this confusion always. Can you share with us about it?
Yes. So I think they mean psychiatrist and clinical psychologist because that's the main confusion that many people have actually. Like, what's the difference between you and a psychiatrist? So a clinical psychologist. So let me start with psychiatrist. A psychiatrist is a medical doctor. They would have gone through that 5-6 years of medical training, and then they were specialized in psychiatry, the study of mental illnesses, and they would, and the way that they provide their intervention is to provide medications. They also do some of them do therapies, but they primarily are able to prescribe medication. A clinical psychologist are not necessarily doctors. They don't actually do the 5-6 years of, they don't actually go through medical school. So for them, the way that they provide help for mental health with patients would be to implement therapies, basically mainly to implement therapies. But they do work together. Clinical psychologists and psychiatrists work together. A clinical psychologist cannot actually prescribe medication. So if you have a patient with severe depression, then that patient can benefit from a psychiatrist because psychiatrists can prescribe medication. But a clinical psychologist would actually do therapy with the patient, and not only with the patient. Sometimes you might find that if you have depression, your relationships might be affected with your family. So that's when a clinical psychologist might be called in order to try to promote mental health for a family psychologist, for example, can promote mental health for the whole family. A clinical psychologist can try to come in to run interventions, therapy for the patient, and the psychiatrist will be monitoring the symptoms to see if medication is needed, to increase medication, etc.
So this is actually my own personal curiosity. If let's say someone is really interested in the study of mind, counseling people and helping people, how do I know whether I'm more fitted in being a psychiatrist or being a psychologist? How do you choose?
A lot of students have that problem, right? I mean, especially as a university student, like, and choosing your degree is always, so much of anxiety, whether you're in the right degree, whether I'll get a job, whether or not, I do what I want to do. And a lot of times you don't actually enter what you want to do, because you might actually along the way find that you actually like doing something else. You might join a psychology degree and decide a general psychology degree and decide that, what, I actually like business psychology, and might like to move on to specialize in that. So we recognize that, like Bangor University, for the undergraduate degree, we have straight psychology, we have business, we have psychology of clinical and health, and we have psychology with neuropsychology. And normally you find students might come in with, because we also have psychology with forensic psychology. So some students that come in, they might be really interested after they watch like so many episodes of CSI and etc. So they might enroll in they might enroll in psychology with forensic psychology, and decide halfway that they actually like neuropsychology or clinical psychology, and they are allowed to switch to clinical or general psychology before the final year. But how you decide whether you know or not, it's something that it's hard to answer. It's something that everybody would face. Very few of them are very certain what they want to do.
Right. I definitely always admire people that is very certain on what they want to do. So we have got another question over here, that what kind of placement opportunities for a psychology degree should I look for? Placement opportunities.
Placement for psychology for undergrad or doing undergraduate degree, basically, right? So, so psychology graduates, they will be valuable in a variety of settings. There is no specific thing saying only psychologists here and psychology non-psychologists in a different field. As I mentioned, it's very versatile. You'll find that your knowledge can be gained you can apply your knowledge and you can benefit from placements in a marketing company, in a HR setting, in a mental health setting, in a wide variety of settings. There is no specific placement that would benefit you more than others, because you would find that you can benefit from a wide variety of settings.
Do you know any organizations in specific that you would encourage the students to do their placement with? If there is any in your mind right now?
I don't actually have any specific organizations. So not specific organizations. I don't actually have any in mind, because it is a versatile degree, and I've known graduates who go on to do the internships with Shell, with HP, with in a mental health office setting. So it again depends on where they want to apply their knowledge and what they want to gain out of it in advertising it.
What kind of subjects should I take? This is probably targeted towards high school audience. What kind of high school subjects or pre-U subjects that I should be taking for a psychology degree?
Okay. So, what kind of subjects you should be taking? So, I was a science student, and I found that understanding biology was very useful to understanding the brain and behavior, for example. Physics was helpful for me to understand how neuroimaging can be applied, and chemistry was for me very advanced in statistics. But that being said, we have many students who are also doing well, having come from an arts degree. It might take a little. Of course, it all requires work, but just because you come from an arts doesn't close the door for a psychology degree. But I'm speaking from experience of a science student.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely beneficial for our fellow science students out there as well. And we have got one final question. I am a year 1 student now, is it possible to apply for a year two study into Bangor psychology course? Is it possible?
Yes,
Dr. Azlina?
yes, we do accept direct transfers.
Mhm.
We do accept direct transfers. We have many students who come into direct entry in year 2 and year 3, but also it depends on your, what you've done for year 1. We would let it, but definitely do send your application. We'll definitely look into it. There have been many students who have come into direct entry.
Okay, that is all about the questions that we're going to take for today. So for questions that we are not able to answer in our live session, don't worry. Our counselors will be able to answer them to you. And if you have any questions in the future, do pop them into our direct message. We will be able to answer them as well. And thank you very much to Dr. Azlina for your time and your sharing today with our students. Do you have any words for our students before we end the session?
Oh, words for students. I just have to say, don't worry too much about your career prospects. Don't worry too much about if you can't decide what you want to do, because I was like that at one point as well. I didn't know what I want to do. It takes a lot of trial and error, but the psychology degree is very important, and you would find your skills fitting in somewhere. You might not end up doing what you want to do, but you would find that your skills would be useful somewhere.
Fantastic. With that,